right. All right, meeting is setting up. Okay, redirecting to YouTube. All right, it is showing that we are live and recording. So, all right. Well, I don't have any background music like I did with the pre-recorded shows. So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for listening to and watching Conscious Radio Network. Today, our special guests are Blanca Beyar and Mimi Silver, or Miriam Silver.
Either way.
Yep. And Miriam was on our show, I'd say probably that was about 2 weeks ago.
I think so. I think it was.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And today we are, and you were mentioning Blanca on that show in when you were consulting her on helping you go through your spiritual journey. And today we are going to talk to Blanca on the work she does as a shaman, and also have Mimi here to kind of touch base and kind of give it a little bit more flavor and kind of validation. So
we appreciate you so much having us here. Thank you so much.
You are very, very, very welcome. And interestingly enough, everybody on this show today is in Florida.
Oh.
Yeah. So, are you in Florida, Mimi?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure you haven't traveled and went to the snow for
no.
some reason.
Nothing's going to make me do that again. No.
Yeah. So, with over 25 years of divine service with humanity, with these 25 years, Blanca, as practicing shamanism?
Yes and no. I began as a healer, and I was still in my own individual practice as a shaman. And I would say 5 years into the practice, I really shifted into shamanism, and I wear many hats. Yeah. And so, of course, shamanism being one of the greatest hats, because of the sacredness of the work. Yeah. And so about 20 years or so, but I was already in my own shamanic journey.
Yeah. So if you can kind of explain how this all started, how this started with you in your life practicing.
Well, my own spiritual journey, I guess, began as a child. The many experiences, the mysterious illnesses that I had throughout my childhood. In retrospect, looking back, I see that it was all part of the journey. And I start there actually because for many individuals, they may experience something similar, which could be a healing crisis, an undescribable illness, an emotional crisis or trauma. And it really is an initiation to a great degree that begins that journey. There's always a choice, and that choice can be that we become the victims to the causation of what may be happening, whether it's a trauma or an illness, or hopefully we take that turn, right, into the journey and begin this beautiful initiation of awakening, of purification, of release, until we find that purpose, that calling.
Yeah.
And It may or may not be encompassing shamanism. It could be the healing arts, right? Holistic medicine, herbalism. But of course, shamanism can be and should be part of that central core of our spirituality.
Yeah, yeah. And when I remember years ago when I first heard the word shaman, and I mean many years ago, and everybody, and I'm sure a lot of people who are new to this nomenclature, people are thinking Native American, grabbing going out in the middle of the desert, grabbing being given a glass of or a cup or something of peyote, sitting around a campfire,
Right.
and going through torture. But and I tell people I've had an ayahuasca experience. I did a retreat about a month or so ago, and you're right. It's an initiation. It allows you to step away from yourself, get away from the ego, and move and kind of experience who you are. Around this movie that we play every day of ourselves. So yeah.
Yes. I love that you brought up the fact that the perception that many may have when they hear the word shamanism is that indigenous, of a native tribe, perhaps South America. And when I hear that, and I'm asked often, like, oh, you're a shaman, with a question mark, is that we should consider the fact that many of us are incarnated souls.
Yeah.
And so in this lifetime, we may have not begun, the journey as part of an indigenous tribe, right? And we want to honor, of course, those indigenous people, those shamans who generation after generation, uphold the traditions of shamanism. But I like to remind people or students that we shouldn't look at the persona and say, oh, but you don't look like a shaman, or you weren't born in, say, South America or in an indigenous country, because many of us are incarnated souls that have come here thousands and thousands of lifetimes.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we incarnate, we bring with us the wisdom of those many lifetimes in which we may have very well played a part in shamanism.
And I think, I wouldn't label myself as a shaman, but many times I've, through mediumship, I've gone into trance. I've talked in tongues. I've literally, danced around a campfire, talking in tongues, doing blessings, and giving tobacco to the spirits and gifts to the spirits and stuff. And I've done that quite a few times. And, afterwards people were like, what were you doing? That was like odd. That was odd. That was scary. Like, who were you? And, some people were like, that wasn't you there. Who was that? So, I feel the work that I've done is kind of a shamanistic aspect. I mean, I wouldn't title myself as a shaman, but a metaphysical practitioner, a spiritual practitioner and teacher. Now, as far as shamanistic work that you do, let's see, the way to phrase this is, no, I kind of lost thought there. I think it's that selenite under my chair.
I told you, right? The selenite. Well, maybe I'll help you.
Yeah. For those who didn't catch us before we went live, this is a big block of selenite.
I warned him that he may become a little floaty if he left it up underneath his chair. So maybe I'll help you. How's that?
Yeah.
So a lot of people who are interested in shamanism don't really know much about it. And yet there's this curiosity, this yearning to know more about it, or they just feel this infinity, right, to nature or to Earth, the Mother Earth, right? And in truth, with respect, of course, and reverence to the elders, we're all natural shamans. And why I say that is because we are all born from Mother Earth, you know, and so shaman then can be replaced in some ways to being a child of Mother Earth. Yes, of course, you know, we traditionally use the word shaman to describe a medicine person, someone who's deeply connected to Earth and the medicine of Earth and the practices surrounding the womb, the Mother Earth, the elements, the directions, the sacred guides, the dream state, you know, the realities, and how we can incorporate all of those teachings, right, to become a shaman beyond this earth, not only in the Mother Earth, but into the many other dimensions that exist in the universal force field. You know, so we begin with the basics would be, you know, learning about the elements and the 4 directions and the guides and how to connect with Mother Earth. But as we continue through that process of the practice, we realize that a shaman is not only an earth shaman, but ultimately a galactic shaman as well. The expansiveness of the soul as a shaman, you know, as part of the earth, but also the galactic field.
Yeah, I've always felt that too. Even through my my ayahuasca journey, I felt the cosmic aspect of it. Shamanism, in any way, any form or fashion, allows us to helps us directly connect to our metaphysical, spiritual, and cosmic self. By doing that more often, we expand, we become more enlightened, and like it's just heard too, you know, a lot of this work, this ancient work through the indigenous, you know, has always been taught through the mystery schools, the ancient mystery schools. It just seems like this is something that we have lost today.
Absolutely,
we have starting to come back, you know, come back in a really big way. So
absolutely, and you know, one of the reasons I love Mimi, so for so many reasons, but one of the reasons why we connect so deeply is because she's such a advocate for the mystery teachings, and we need more people to step into, you know, and to uphold really the mystery teachings and how they sort of integrate, besides what I explained earlier, that we can graduate of the progression can be seen as an earth shaman and then becoming a galactic shaman and integrating those energies. But also in learning about shamanism, we learn about the traditions, the ancient traditions.
Yeah.
And they correlate and have a resonance to the mystery teachings, which we've lost. We really have lost touch with what the mystery teachings truly are. And so it is one of my passions, of course, to teach the mystery teachings to the students and to the continuum, the integrity of upholding those teachings. There's a lot of saturation amidst the awakening process today. And so while it's really wonderful that there are so many who are yearning and becoming, you know, have a yearning to step in and to awaken and to understand what that means.
Yeah.
There's also been a saturation where many, you know, want to share or step in to share, not being able to encompass the totality of the indigenous ancient teachings and the mystery teachings as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mimi, how did you first get a hold of or find out about Blanca?
Well, we've sort of had an on again, off again relationship because some years back I was doing Alexander's Psychic Eye, as I told you the last time, which was a show at Staten Island CTV, Community Television Access, and Blanca happened to be a guest on the show there. And this was like early on in the show, you know, the early on period of the show. And then many years later, after I had stopped doing that show, all of a sudden Blanca and I crossed paths again. And this was when we fought. I guess it was at a point where I knew inside of me that I wanted more. I wanted to learn. I knew there was something more I wanted to learn. I couldn't put my fingers on it. I knew it had to do something with something that goes back in ancient times, but it was very hard for me to like try to, you know, put it in language what it was. And then Blanca, I crossed paths with Blanca and she's teaching the ancient mysteries. And I said, well, that's what I'm looking for, you know? So it was synchronicity that we came together again after several years, you know, not seeing one another. And because, you know, it takes it takes a long journey before you get to a certain point where you're ready for that which is going to be taught. And each teacher brings that different level. So Blanca was bringing the level of the ancient mysteries and then shamanism as well. So it was time for me to go, you know, to get involved in that. So and I know my higher self was bringing me down that path for a reason. So yeah.
Yeah, I see a huge rush when the Jacksonville Expo, that was Saturday and Sunday this past weekend.
Right.
The first time as the furthest that I've had to travel for these shows, and seeing the amount of people, the traffic, and you know not only the amount of people, but the diversity of people, the different ages. I mean, you've got really young, like in high school, college. You've got, you know, the seniors, people 60 and up, 70. I've seen a couple of, you know, some people there that were probably in their 80s, 90s, you know.
That's great.
And all ages and all interested in this stuff. And, you know, from sound healing, light healing, to crystals, to, you know, all different types of modalities of not only that, but like herbal stuff. Whatnot.
Right.
Now, as far as shamanism, what specific modalities in shamanism, Blanca, do you kind of is your favorite, is your repertoire, so to speak?
Well, I would say all of them. You know, it's hard to describe or to explain, because I never actually traveled to work with a shaman, say, you know, in an indigenous country or in an apprenticeship. And I say that very humbly, but very boldly, because the shamanism first came looking for me as I was going on that spiritual journey, and it began by having memories of past lives. And so as I went through that process, I just began to have not only memories, but the knowledge of the practice just naturally began to unveil itself. And so if I think about what, you know, like what area or, you know, like what part, I would say all of them, because as I said earlier, there's many of us here. We can say the 144,000 plus, right? The star seeds, all the celestial beings who became part of this conglomerate to come here into this earth to be part of this ascension. We've been here we've been in incarnation many times, thousands, hundreds, thousands of times. And during that process, the evolution of our soul learned many things, you know? And so when I think of, you know, like how I approached the teachings, I start with the basics, of what I learned and remember myself, which is we need to begin by discovering ourselves, by having a communion and an intimacy with Mother Earth, and allowing the elements of the Mother Earth to then take you into a deeper journey towards your sacred self, towards anything that needs to be healed in this timeline and in past lifetimes. And there is this metamorphosis that begins to happen, as you delve in to the Mother Earth and to shamanism, into your journey, that may take you in many different directions, which is why the directions are really important, of discovery, discovery of healing, of remembrance, and eventually that oneness that occurs in entering into the womb of the Mother Earth, my personal approach as an elder is not so much, and of course, again, honoring all practices of the ayahuasca or, other medicinal uses. I guess I'm old school in believing that we need to do the inner work consciously.
Yeah.
And so it's not a matter of what's better or what's right or wrong, but there's a great sense of fulfillment and of accomplishment when somebody does the inner work consciously, where at times if we're under the influence of a medicinal herb, again, not saying that it's not the right thing to do, but it could be traumatic. And the process itself leaves a lot of question marks as to why you had all of these memories or, like these visions. And so I think that although, of course, it's very endorsed by indigenous tribes, there's a fulfillment that we experience when we do the work consciously. And what I mean by that is, looking within or working with a shaman, looking at all wounds, fractures, fragmentation that may have occurred in this timeline or in other timelines. That's a big one, by the way. Many people suffer from fragmentation and are not aware of why, because they can't point the finger at any instance in this lifetime that may have caused such a trauma. And a lot of times is because it's not from this timeline, but from a previous past, lifetime, where the fragmentation, the interception of it began. Many people who are diagnosed with conditions such as bipolar, schizophrenic, I believe, I actually wrote a book about the subject, may not at all be experiencing something that triggered those conditions here, but something that was fragmented from a previous life that then was carried over into this lifetime to be reconciled with.
Yeah. I've always felt that trauma follows us, through the ether of time and space, in many lifetimes and stuff like that. If we don't get to heal it and recover from it, we'll carry it with us. Mm-hmm. That's all. It's probably also similar to is I've also heard the some time ago that trauma doesn't only follow us directly through our lifetimes, but can be inherited through our family from bloodlines and stuff like that, like from what our ancestors may have done, some trauma and stuff like that. It also that energetically can get passed over to us as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it can, and I think that hand in hand with that would be energetic cords that are, through lineage, through family bonds, but ancestral bonds, I was going to say. But also emotionally, like the conditioning of that, and what I mean is a lot of times, just our natural upbringing. To some degree, we are a product of what we are born into, right? The beliefs, our conviction, what we eat, how we behave. This is all part of a conditioning that becomes a part of our makeup, and integrated into our own belief structure. So part of our individual journey, by the way, that could all be wonderful. It could be a beautiful upbringing, a memory, a foundation. It's when it's not, say that there's abuse, addiction, fragmentation, dysfunction, that we come to a turning point, as I started in the beginning by saying we have a choice of continuing the cycle by becoming the victim, continuing then the saga, yes, from the ancestral carrying of all of that influence, or we can recognize and have a desire to break the chain, and to also break the energetic cords that have been attached to those ancestral energetic cords, and also to the present one, the conditioning, that we've been exposed to in this current lifetime. And that could be a journey, right? It could definitely be a journey. And so one of the reasons why I've written so many books and I do so much work is because it's so much easier when we're able to have someone mentor us, whether it's a book, whether it's a video, anything that can help facilitate putting all of these pieces together, because it's not always as easy as I explained it. Many people who yearn to reach a level of healing don't know how to begin that process, may not have an understanding that there is ancestral energetic energies, that there's influences from dysfunction, from fragmentation. And so how do they begin that? They go to therapy, which again, I'm not, which is a good thing, but most of the time they can't get to that pinpoint, which is why, again, shamanism is such a holy and sought out, and sometimes last alternative for individuals who are experiencing fragmentation, illness, dis-ease, and have not been able to find the answers to their healing through traditional, medicinal or even therapeutic alternatives.
Yeah.
As Miriam and the wonderful book that she wrote, Spiritual Cancer, and how she brings that to the apex of integrating that there was so much more than the mechanics of the physiology of the body, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Or genetics for that matter, but something deeper that had to do with those energetic cords from this lifetime and from past lifetimes as well,
Yeah. It's almost too like a sense of remembering. Sometimes we have to remember something that's happened in a past lifetime, and by just remembering it rather than just forgetting it like everybody else does, we're naturally forget our past lives. But once we remember, we tie in shamanistically with the use of a shaman and stuff, tying in and remembering something that may have happened that was traumatic is, in a sense, it's a healing. So
it is. And I think that one of the challenges for many who may desire to seek, to begin their journey is that, unfortunately, as a society, we've been conditioned to to impulsive quick fixes. We are so overstimulated by the availability of, like quick technology and everything, like at the tap of a finger, and so we don't have the patience or we don't have the tolerance to invest the time in learning the deeper meanings. That's why we go back to the mystery teachings of why do things happen? Why do we experience what we do? Are we being punished? Are things happening out of our control? Or is there a deeper reason why things happen? And of course, the shaman will always say that everything's a gift, that everything is an opportunity for growth and expansion, right? But how do we learn to accept that when nobody teaches us that, that there's a deeper meaning, that there's a deeper place to search for that. It's easier to blame it on something else, than to look at ourselves and to invest the time to do the inner work that's promised to completely transform your life, but only the warriors are going to step in there to do the work, which is why I love my students. It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. You have you've got a recently went on a big endeavor and created an online school and portal for people to yes. It's called the Universal Portal of Ascension.
Yes. In an endeavor to help the many people who began to get that yearning on the onset of the pandemic, and also realizing that we were on the cusp of an ascension. We've been in the cusp, but now we're in full throttle ascension. I decided to create the Universal Portal School of Ascension. And what I did was create mini courses, because I feel that the books that I've written and the beautiful books that are available out, around the world by many mentor teachers, gurus, are another way, right? But I felt that people needed just little bits, just enough to spark them, to uplift them, and so the mini courses of the school is primarily composed of little mini courses where you don't have to invest too much time or money, but that you can definitely walk away with some, with some spirit food, whether it's meditation, whether it's how to raise your vibration, whether it's to learn about intuition, about your chakras. These are all mini courses that are in the school that are a beginning point, for someone who's looking to self-develop. And, the real reason is to shift, because we are in a full throttle ascension. We are at a place where we literally have two different earths in existence. We have an old structure, collapsing old paradigm, and then we have a new earth that's vibrationally thriving and open and ready to receive and embrace those that are energetically ready to enter and to experience that. What is that earth? What is it? It's a vibrational frequency, right? And so we're in that place right now where there's so many that are in a zombie state. They're in paralysis because of what we've experienced over the last 2 years in particular, And what I want to say, would love to share, of course, we're talking about shamanism, but is that this is a grand opportunity amidst the crises. It's a call to awaken. And so we can do that by investing time in our sacred self in whatever way we can. So the little courses, the books, the lectures, the workshops, the expos that you spoke about, anything that can bring us into that place of raising our vibration.
Yeah. And because I see so many people getting more involved in it and very interested in it, it tells you something that, you know, we're fed up, or we've gotten to that point going, you know, this structure, this world around us, this holographic universe and that's around us is getting to the point to where, you know, our vibration, we're raising our vibration. Some people want to raise their vibration, but, you know, naturally it's like I see people that are naturally they naturally want to raise their vibration, because you could tell otherwise they wouldn't be going to these events. You know, they're thriving and looking for these metaphysical aspects that they can embrace and bring into their lives. And it just tells us that, yeah, we're getting close to that precipice of the ascension, of the new awakening, so to speak.
And absolutely. And, you know, it's wonderful to hear that there's these wonderful expos here and around the world. Of course, there's so many light workers, ambassadors of light that are doing what they can. You know, again, Miriam and her wonderful book, and many of the students, you know, doing their part. But we need to do more. And so, of course, I celebrate you for offering this program to your viewers, to your listeners, because we need to do more. And the reason why we need to do more is because we are unified in oneness, in the absolute space. We are all one. And so the soul center, our soul heart center knows that, you know, from that absolute place, it knows that we're all one, that there is no separation here. And so we can go ahead and keep moving towards the new paradigm and say, you know what, you know, I got it, you know, they got it, so let's keep moving. But there's this calling to help, you know, what I lovingly term the little ones to awaken and to remember, so that they too can bring themselves through the threshold of the new paradigm, you know. And it is a crisis because we have all of this lower vibration in the old structure that's still in existence, all of this heaviness, you know, like a heavy umbrella of all the things that are happening in the world, and, you know, the economics, the political, the pandemic, you know, unemployment. There's a lot in there, you know, enough to swallow the little ones, you know. What do we do? And so what we need to do is speak more about it, you know, be advocates, be the examples, and to share with others how they can qualify themselves to bring themselves into the new paradigm, right? And shamanism, of course, is one of those ways. The crystals, you know, the expos, anything and everything that we can do to help them get to that place of qualification.
Yeah. And it just dawned on me too, is like, it seems, I have a feeling too that everything that's been going on the last couple of years, and not only the last couple of years, but all these different shifts, you know, that have been feeling so just dark and negative and stuff like that is it seems to be like a reverb, a reaction. The universe is reactionary, and law of attraction too. It's like we've been sending out and doing all this negative stuff and feeling so negative. In turn, the universe goes, here you go, like attracts like energy. So now it's getting to the point that we're responding to that and going, oh wow, what did we do? So now we're shifting. Now it's forcing us to shift and change our thought, our frame of mind and the way we, the way we should live.
Yes, and there's a lot of influences, our own and external influences as well, that are all part of this old paradigm. I want to leave the new paradigm out for a moment because the new paradigm is thriving, alive and vibrant. But there are many influences in this old structure that is definitely in its collapsing state. And again, that place of what can we do? Do we just succumb to it? Do we just give up? Or is there something? So the crises, I also wanted to say that, we can sort of point the finger and say that there are many things that we've done, that the humanity has done, that the influences have done. But all of this is an opportunity because we all agreed to be part of this. And part of the crises is triggers, and we could continue again to ignore the triggers and get upset, get angry, get resentful, get violent, or we can recognize that within each one of these crises and experiences, there's an opportunity, and the soul is knocking on the door and saying, wake up, have a shift in consciousness, right? And so that is what we hold, and of course, the work that many of the light workers are upholding is to be the example and, the ambassadors to call the little ones to wake up and to realize that they're living in an illusion, an illusion of entrapment within themselves, that we can shift ourselves out of this experience regardless of what's going on in the old paradigm.
Yeah.
Regardless of what's going on, right?
It's like the movie The Matrix. It's been such it's always been such a popular movie. Why? Because it resonates with us. It's explaining what it's about us. It's like a story of, of the structures we've put into place and this holographic universe, and this, is that theory that what is it, that we're an experiment, that we're part of a simulation, I haven't really looked too much into this whole simulation theory, but I've heard a really quick bit on it, and I'm like, I don't want to study it too much, or else it'll make me crazy.
If we look into shamanism, right, we learn that the journeying is really about allowing the layers of the physical self drop and going into the many layers that we are energetically, spiritually, in other realities. And so when we talk about an experiment, I don't know if I would necessarily use the word experiment, but this is a dream.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for some to understand, of course, because everything that we experience, especially when we're being challenged, is very real, But in shamanism, we learn that there are dream states, right? And different realities. And if we can only allow ourselves to become expansive in that knowingness and to tap into slowly, right? We will discover that this is all a creation, whether we want to call it a play, whether we want to call it an experiment. Really, it was a creation of our own creation that we play out until we remember, or we start to remember. And part of that remembrance can come from the mystery teachings. Some of that remembrance can definitely come from shamanic work, to realize that we don't have to be part of the dream. So that's why I say we need to qualify ourselves into the new paradigm. because it's like, where is the new paradigm? Can you give me the address? You know, like, is there an address? Is there, you know, like a physical place? Well, the answer is yes and no, you know, but really no. It's a state of consciousness. It's a channel. And a good way to look at it, you know, a simple analogy is to say, well, a television comes, you know, with just 5 channels. And if you want to access other channels, you have to have a receptor, right? You know, cable. And shamanic work, shamanism, and the mystery teachings, working on the sacred self, all begin to open these expanded channels that we weren't aware that existed. Yes, right?
Yeah.
And in those channels, we have a great discovery of realities, of the dream, of the play. And we learn to become the observer. We learn to master ourselves and the realities, you know? And so, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
like,
too,
yeah,
and
I
I was
just,
gonna ask Mimi, is like, it doesn't always take a crisis for people. I tell people, don't allow your life to bring you into a crisis in order to start changing your life. And that's when I was gonna bring Mimi in on this as far as her experience.
Well, I just wanted to say that this plays into how we've allowed ourselves to think that we're just small beings, and that we don't have the right or or even the creativity to create something bigger. It's almost as if we've believed in the fact that we're basically small little beings, that we don't have a right, because we've always been told that, you know, there's always somebody higher than you, you know, or somebody, and every time they put competition into the whole programming, because they want you to feel like there's only one person who's going to be better than you, or another person's going to be better than you. So you feel as if you're nothing. So I think that with expanding one's spirituality and their consciousness, they start to learn that they're much more than this, and that they can create a much more expansive reality, and that we're like multidimensional beings. We're not just here. We're not just this one physical being, this one physical form. There's so much more of us out there. So I think that's something where that over time, people will come to understand a little more, you know, as they go through that expansion.
Yeah. Do you both think that as far as the dimensional shift too, that we're moving out of 3D and moving into the 4 and 5D, that this will also change our perception of ourselves to where we will start to be able to perceive more of ourselves and see and experience ourselves existing in multi dimensions. And even Einstein said that we are experiencing ourselves in multiple dimensions simultaneously.
Absolutely. You know, and Mimi, if she wants to share, but absolutely 100%. You know, the shift from the 3rd dimension to 4, 5, 6, you know, like, it doesn't stop at 5. The greater in awareness that we become, the greater in our knowingness of how truly multidimensional we truly are, and the abilities that we possess, you know, that we are not the body, you know, the energetic existence of who we truly are, and truly living then in totality in that whole different perception. You know, and so whether we call it the luminous body, or superhuman, or sentient beings, we are going to discover, this is already occurring for those that have entered into the new paradigm, that, you know, we have many abilities, that one day in the very near future, in the new paradigm, we're not going to need the medical arena to heal, that we are going to be natural scanners, MRI, like we're going to be, we're going to have the ability to see, to heal and repair, restore with our energies, and help others, and then teach them how to do this as well. We are already integrating that in this timeline. And with my students, this is something that we're already learning. So there's this beautiful, expansive, new reality that is in here, that we can be a part of. Or we can look at it and question it, or we can look at the old paradigm and say, well, that sounds really nice, but look at what's happening here. So our perception and what we place our focus and our attention to is critical, because that is going to determine how we experience our reality and our lives. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely. We have a couple people on the chat on the YouTube channel, and I am sharing your website on there. That way. Now the website, the Universal Portal of Ascension, I briefly went there really quick so I can copy paste it. Journey into self-discovery. So for anybody who wants to try to find you, it's Universal Portal of Ascension .think.com.
Well, I would actually recommend that they just go to my website, because part of the school is in there.
Yeah.
Right. And so if anyone who's interested in learning more in the school, they could just visit BlancaBeyar.com, and they will find a host of, a variety of things, including the school and the courses through my main website. They'll find the books, they'll find a lot of goodies in there. They're inspired.
Okay. All right. Cool. Now, let's see. I said we're all in Florida, so everybody's probably like, where are you sitting? I'm like, I'm sitting outside. So we're but let's see.
Well, you know that Florida is part of the New Atlantis, right?
Yeah, Atlantis. That's why everybody's flocking here. Everybody's like attracted to.
It's the healing energy.
And not only that, but the portals all over the world too. That's why California is so popular, is because there's a portal there. All these like the Bermuda Triangle, the Devil's Triangle, the Dragon's Triangle in China. There's all these. There's the grid through all over the world and stuff like that. Where the ley lines and stuff, and there's these portals that are pretty much almost equidistant from each other all over the world, which is also where some of these ancient monuments pretty much lay at, like Stonehenge and the pyramids and but Florida, California,
New York.
Well, I have to say, and of course this is just my observation, but there are definitely many portals around the world. Many Atlantis had many colonies around the world, but I would lovingly but boldly say that the apex of that is here in Florida, which is why many people are flocking here. For those who are familiar with Edgar Casey, a beautiful teacher of mine in spirit, he talks at length about the location of Atlantis, which was from Bimini, which is part of the Bahamas, going through Cuba and Florida. And so it's actually what brought me to Florida, was the apex that's here. It literally just magnetized me here, gravitated me here to do work. Yeah.
Wow. So let's see. I've lost thought again. I guess the selenite is working on me slowly.
Bad selenite, bad.
Yeah, get out of my chair.
I said to him, he said he was going to put it underneath his chair, and I said, I don't think that's a good idea.
I get so involved in listening. I'm like listening to all this information, and then it's like, boom. And I was like, what am I going to say? I don't know. That was really cool.
That's good though, because you're receiving calibration through all of this beautiful insight, right? Wisdom that we all share, and the part of the mystery teachings is about assimilation. You know, we have conversations, we read books, and we don't realize, you know, the wonderful work of Drumbalo, of the Flower of Life, you know, the many, you know, Edgar Casey, you know, I could go on and on. You know, these books all have light codes. Yeah. And what that means is that we're ingesting the calibration. You know, I just wrote the New Atlantis and the Sophia Codex, and it's about Atlantis and the New Earth, but it also contains many symbols. And again, it's part of a calibration that we receive, you know, and so we may feel a little lethargic or like, because there is a lot of a stimulation that goes on when we're being introduced to these light codes.
Yeah. A couple more people chimed in on the chat on YouTube. It's the first time I'm kind of interacting. I'm kind of hosting, but then I'm kind of like playing the the call monitor in the studio. Now, how many books do you have out?
I just wrote my 18th, which is the New Atlantis and the Sophia Codex. Many of the books that I've written throughout the years all of them are self-help, you know, from learning how to start the path, you know, forgiveness, discovering ourselves, about intuition, mediumship, soul retrieval. There is a beautiful little library in there. You know, there's something for everyone. And I encourage, if someone is looking, like I said, you know, a book is a great way to start that journey, you know, because many books are written with light language to trigger the reader to receive, you know, those codes of remembering, like a trigger, like, wow, that spoke to me just now, you know? Yeah. And so,
Wow. Do you have any hard copies with you that you can hold up that people might be
I do. Hold on one second.
And I'm sure, Miriam, if you got one there, that way we can, the viewers too that want to know more about Miriam Silver's work. She's got a book out called,
this is the one that just came out.
Awesome.
And Spiritual Cancer. And this was my very first book I did a few years back. And it's sort of like my spiritual journey, how to sort of give people clues on what a journey would be like, and the fact that it's a very subtle path that you don't realize you're on. Yeah. And how synchronicity weaves into the whole background of your life. So that's the other one, A Life in Progress of a Practical Spiritualist. So I did this a few years back, and then Spiritual Cancer was just the one that I just published.
Yeah, the most recent one. Yeah. And if anybody wants to see anybody who's watching now who wants to go see the previous interview that we had with Miriam, is the Spiritual Journey of Miriam Silver, which I think was a couple weeks ago. It's on our playlist there on our channel.
I also put it on my website too, right on the book page of my website at miriamasilver.com, so people could see the show there as well.
Cool. Yeah. She's back.
She's back.
So this is the New Atlantis and the Sophia Codex. It's only been released a few months, and it is my 18th book, and I feel the most important book that I've written. Yeah. It's a very small book. I did that I wrote it purposely small because it contains 8 symbols that were, well, that were brought here from Atlantis and preserved through many lifetimes for this very specific timeline where we're living in right now. And these symbols are geared to not only remembrance, but to actually activate our DNA strands. Because the encodement of our memories and our Akashic records are preserved in our DNA. And so if there's anyone who really is interested in not only walking the path, but, becoming part of that activation, I would so highly recommend that they read this one. Okay. And of course, I have so many others. This is another one that I recommend. It's called The Path to Self-Realization. I love this one because it walks a reader through those fundamental principles that we should practice when we're beginning the journey, that hard work that I spoke of earlier, how do we begin? We have to reconcile, we have to forgive, we have to pardon, we have to discover ourselves. And it's not easy, it's not always easy. And so what inspired me to write this book was, if someone couldn't come to the office and do this work, the book could step by step help them in doing this work, the inner work, and have some assistance along the way. I'm a big advocate that books can help us heal, and help us find that journey.
Yeah. And I prefer books over Kindle or any digital copy any day. I got to have a physical copy of a book.
I agree, actually. You like to highlight, you like to make little notations, you like to go back, like, oh, what did I read? Let me go back. I totally agree with you. I don't like to read books on Kindle. It's another way, it's a new way. But there's something about the hard copy. It's almost like you'd actually feel the energy of the writer, of the author also. You feel their heart energy coming through the pages. I've had many people say that about the Codex, how as they were reading pages of the Codex, they felt the movement of that energy, they felt tingling in their body, they felt vibration in their body. So I agree that the hard copy may be something that speaks to us.
Yeah, I definitely gotta get a copy of that book. That is intriguing. Definitely.
Well, you contacted me after we're done in email, and I would be so happy to send you a copy. Absolutely.
Awesome. And anybody listening and watching, even later on, and they can get it on your website, and as well as or also on Amazon.
Yes.
As well as the other 17.
As well as the other 17, yes. There's a little library in the website, but all of them are available. Actually, maybe 2 of them are only available through me because I took them out of print. But I would say about 15 or 16 of them are still available through Amazon. So, yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess we'll close up the show and stuff. And so like I said, thank you very much for being here and being here on Conscious Radio Network. This is going to be one of the very, very seldom, depending on how well I'm able to perfect live broadcasts. I like to edit. I like to go through edit and post-production and kind of glamour it up, give it a really glitzy, opening and a glitzy closing with credits, kind of like a movie.
Right.
But sometimes it doesn't happen. I got a lot of videos.
You know what?
So
sometimes the lives are more appreciated by your subscribers and the viewers than the whole nicey, cleaned up. I get it. But I like the raw, live shows. we want to thank you. I want to personally thank both Miriam for being the catalyst and making the contact. I want to give you my heartfelt gratitude. Thank you so much for allowing me to have the opportunity to address the audience. And we hope that we left them with a footprint of inspiration, that there is a way, that there's a beautiful earth waiting for them, and a spark that we will hold the field for people to awaken, and to shift themselves from this low consciousness into this beautiful new space. And so grateful. Thank you so very much for giving us your time.
You're very welcome. And that's the thing. It's like I
your
want to be that
to your radio, to the radio station.
And I definitely want to be that vehicle. I've always been like a vehicle of kind of energy and kind of just, there's so many practitioners out there. There's so many healers and light workers and shaman out there that do so many different things. And it's just, and not only that, there's so many people out there that need help but don't know they need help.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And by listening to shows like this, they kind of, it might spark something, go, wait a second, let me look into that. So yeah, I will further, I'll further put some contact information and more of the information into the description of this video on the YouTube channel, and some links on the Conscious Radio Network website, and resources and stuff like that help people find, help find and guide people to both of your work. So,
thank you so very much, Paul, and many blessings to you. May you be beautifully enriched for all the beautiful work that you do, and we send you all of our love, light, and peace. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening. Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste. Aho.
Oh, it's done.
It still says live up there. Do you see it?
Oh, yeah, maybe